And welcome. My name is Harold Eke, and I serve as the president of Every Vote Counts. We are a student-led, nonpartisan organization dedicated to addressing voter suppression and civic engagement. We believe that all political questions, whether economic, foreign, domestic, or environmental, all rest on the voting system. And when that system is flawed, the voice of the people are not truly heard. The political machinery upon which our country is built is broken. In order to fix this system, we must address three core issues: apathy, access, and voter suppression. To that end, our core objective is rooted in this twofold mission. One, more people should vote, and two, the active voting population should reflect the nation's demographics. With that, I'm beyond excited to introduce our guest speaker for today, Governor Raimondo. Designated by Fortune magazine as one of the world's 50 greatest leaders, Governor Raimondo pursued many professional endeavors, both in the private and public sectors, prior to her inauguration in 2015. Following her graduation from Harvard University in 1993, she attended the University of Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar and received her JD from Yale Law School in 1998. Governor Raimondo then began clerking under federal judge Kimbler Woods and worked as a senior vice president at Village Ventures in Manhattan before founding her own venture capital firm, Point Judith Capital. She was first elected to public office in 2010, serving as the general treasurer of Rhode Island. And in November 2014, Gina Raimondo was elected to be the first female governor of Rhode Island. And so without further ado, it is my pleasure and I'm incredibly honored to introduce to you all Governor Gina Raimondo.
Hello, everybody. We need a little more than that. Come on. It's a gorgeous day. Maybe you're bummed to be inside and not outside where it's almost 70 degrees and sunny. Anyway, thank you, Harold, and thank you guys for having me. A friend of mine, Mark Feigen, asked me if I would come and say a few words. I'm a member of the corporation at Yale, and we had meetings all day today, and so we were able to fit this in between meetings, and when he called me, I jumped at the chance to come and be with you, because I am incredibly impressed that so many young people are motivated, politically motivated, civically engaged, and candidly willing to come out on a spring Friday afternoon to talk about civic engagement and voting and saving our democracy. So the least I could do was come and offer you a few thoughts. As an aside, I worked for Mark right after college in like the early 90s, and we've stayed friends since. So note to self for all of you, even when you're doing internships and whatnot, develop those relationships, because you never know. You never know, maybe someone you stay friends with. I also want to congratulate you. As I understand it, Yale has the first chapter of Every Vote Counts. That's incredible. It takes a lot to be first. It takes a lot of initiative to be a leader. And being a Yale alum, that gives me great pride. And as other folks are following you and are going to follow you, so you should be proud of that. You should be proud that you're first in the country to do that. So, by a show of hands, how many people are eligible to vote, old enough to vote? Okay? And I figured that. And by a show of hands, how many of you are registered and planning to vote in November? Good. Good. Now, if we were in a regular lecture class at Yale of seniors, what do you think that would look like? Do you think all the hands would go up? Half the hands? What do you think? Maybe half the hands? So, if I were you, that's the first thing I would focus on. People in your immediate network, your friends, your dorm mates, your section mates, people you play sports with, people in your class. That may sound simple to you, but if you're in class, hey, are you registered to vote? Are you gonna vote? Where are you gonna vote? You're gonna vote in Connecticut? You're gonna vote where you're from? Who are you gonna vote for if you're voting back home? I bet you'll be very surprised to learn how few of your classmates, even in this political environment, are going to vote, are registered, and have a plan. In that small way, it can make a huge difference. We know from elections and from campaigns that when you call somebody a week before voting and you say to them, are you going to vote? And then you say to them, what time are you going to vote? Where are you going to vote? Do you have a ride to the polls? These simple prompts make an enormous difference in the probability that that person actually shows up and votes. The other thing we know is that the least likely voters are the people who have just registered. So that puts a little bit more of a burden on what you're trying to do. The most likely voters, we keep all the roles in a campaign, and the most likely voter is someone who's voted in every election for the past 15 years. We always worry, Aunt Annie, who's 83 years old, who's going to vote for you, is she actually going to get to the polls? Don't worry about her. She's been doing it every year for 50 years. She's going to get there. Who you have to worry about are people who have just registered. They're the least likely to do it because they're not in the habit of doing it. So your job is to register and then figure out simple ways and prompts to get people to actually show up. What I would say is don't underestimate the power of what you're doing. I, like a lot of people, am incredibly heartened by what I'm seeing around the country in engagement from young people. And in a very real way, we are counting on you guys to maintain this engagement. And I love, every vote counts, it's true. Last year, I worked very hard to get automatic voter registration passed in Rhode Island. Made us, I think, the 9th state in the country. It's a pretty liberal piece of legislation. It took me 3 years to get it passed. The Secretary of State and I worked very closely to do this. And essentially, when you sign up for a license, you go to the DMV, you can automatically register. This election is our first year that that's happening. And so we'll see the impact that it will have. But we're pretty excited, and there's already a lot of momentum around that. And for certain groups, for younger people, first-time voters, I think we're going to see a nice lift this year. What we don't have is same-day voting, and I'd like to push for that in Rhode Island. That is a key reform, makes a huge difference. We also do our voting in Rhode Island on a weekday. Not everybody can get out of work on a weekday. So I think that, these reforms are worth pushing for. And by the way, you need to do it, this, but you need to do it on a state-by-state basis. That's an obvious point, but it's an important point, because most people, when they think about, I'm going to get involved in politics, and that's true for all of us, not just young people, it's kind of sexy and fun to think about Washington and the presidential campaigns and United States Senate campaigns. This stuff happens in state houses. Automatic voter registration is only in 9 states. To get it in every other state, you have to lobby in state houses. Same-day voting, lobby in state houses. Any form of electronic voting or weekend voting or easier absentee ballots has to happen in state houses. So I'll also make that pitch to you, as some of you are senior, and who's a senior? Okay, I'll make a pitch to you. Pitch to you guys that this is important elections this year, and think about getting engaged on a state level. Because many of the decisions that are being made are on a state level. And by the way, in case you haven't noticed, not much is happening in Washington anyway, so you might as well go to city and state levels where things are happening. The other thing I want to bring to your attention and ask you to think about, and it might be something for your group to think about, is the incredibly important role that governors play in the redistricting conversation. So gerrymandering is something that is an enormous problem in this country. If you look at places like Texas and North Carolina. These maps are rigged. There is no other way to say it. The maps are drawn often by state legislatures, and there's one person who can veto an unfair map, and that's the governor of the state. So for right now, I'm not going to ask for show of hands who's a Democrat and who's a Republican, but right now, there are only 16 Democratic governors in America. 34 Republicans. That's an imbalance that is not good for our democracy. I happen to be a Democrat. I am one of the 16, so I also think more Democratic governors is good for the Republic, but I won't try to convince you of that. That imbalance of 2 to 1, when you have a concentration of power in one political party, the president, majority in the House, majority in the United States Senate, and 2 to 1 in governors' mansions, that is an imbalance of power. And when you think about, forget about the public policy implications of that, which are enormous, think about the gerrymandering reality of that. We need more governors in, state houses to veto unfair maps. So if you say to yourself, what's the most important thing I could do in a certain state, it might be to get behind a governor who you believe in, because that is going to have long-term consequences. When I was in law school here, and by the way, that is something that we've